Hello and welcome to another weekend watch. The numbers are dwindling. It's just me and Andrew this week. Didn't bother putting a video out last week because Kate wasn't hosting, but the fans have asked to see our faces again, so fingers crossed that'll be up and running. It was a decent week though for those of you that managed to listen to it on our audio platforms. Matty got his nap in with Dual Identity. I obviously got my nap in with Sebastopol. Can't believe the SP still. Matty did steal the show though, in fairness to him, because he had, alongside that winning nap, he had 3 other winners. Amaric, Heredia, and Ablan. This week, though, I'm going to keep the waffling again to a minimum because ITV have managed to secure 10 races for us to go through. So just between me and Andrew, we are going to find you the winner of every single one of those races. I'm so confident, Andrew. I'm ready to kick off. Are you okay with that?
Well, you should be. You're on fire at the moment, you and Matthew. I need to book my ideas up, pull my finger out, and whatever other cliche you want to come up with. But yeah, well done last week. And although you lose points for predicting Sebastopol will be 5-2 favourite, and when he was about 2 or 3 times that price.
I know, it's scandalous. I still can't get my head around it. Sometimes it tempers enthusiasm, but I just got stuck in, so hopefully a few viewers did too. Right, let's crack on with the action, mate. First race we've got is at Kempton, the 135 on the all-weather. It's the Unibet September Stakes. So Group 3 over 1 mile, 4 furlongs. We've got 7 declared, so remember that for each way terms. Because we have got so many races, I might be a bit more reedy on some of this stuff. But I've got some notes on each of the races. So Bay Bridge has 3 of these 5 wins coming in October. So I know we're not in October, but the time of the year, maybe he does do all right around this time. He's displayed hints, though, that he's not completely straightforward. I thought of the Curragh he'd win after he got out in the Open, and he didn't. And then last time at Ascot, he didn't find much in the last stages, but the race was already lost by then, to be fair. If you do go back a little bit further, though, his last win, which came in the back of 2022, he only just held on to Adayar, and I watched that back. He could be a little bit quirky. So he's stepping up in trip here. There's a few question marks about him, but I do think that he is the right favourite. Jim Crowley's over in Ireland, and rightly so he won't be riding in Isra. Kieran Schumacher rides in for the first time, and for all that he won last time out, you'd have to question the effort of the runner-up Adaya, who just didn't seem to be going on a going day, so question mark around that one. I might be being harsh, but this horse was beat in a listed race before that and a Group 3 prior. I know he did come second in both of those, but he was climbing the handicap rank, so I don't actually think he's 115 rated. And then, of course, we've got Fortina, the Chilean horse, real cold one. You'll like it in the heat when he coming out for the Gosdens for the first time. I don't know how anybody could possibly put a number on what this horse has done, but the Gosdens did send a Naval here, sent Jack Hobbs in the past, so all the eyes will be on this horse. I would be suggesting that Baybridge is the right favourite. It's unfortunately going to be kicking off with a no-bet race for me, but Baybridge is the right favourite, I think. Andrew, can you give the viewers a winner?
Yeah, I think I can, but it's a pretty boring one, and it's Baybridge. I mean, he was very impressive in landing the Brigadier Gerard last season by 5 lengths. I was this close to putting him up as a bet in my column that day, and I was just worried about the absence, and that I sort of wimped out in the end. And then he had excuses at Royal Ascot next time. The winner, State of Rest, got first run on him basically, and managed to dictate. But you look at his record below Group 1 levels since he was stepped up in trip beyond a mile, 5 wins from 5 starts. So if you say he's the same horse that he was last season, I think that runner-up effort to Luxembourg perhaps suggests he is, then he's going to take all the beating. Now, that Luxembourg run, a lot of people blame Richard Kingscote for getting chinned that day, but I think it was more a case of it was a typical Curragh contest where you had to be on the front end, the winner's made all. And although he wasn't a million miles behind in the early stages, sitting in 3rd, he might as well be sitting in 6th the way the track was riding at that meeting. So 5 from 5, beyond a mile, over, below Grade 1 level, dropping in class again, I should say, sorry, to Group 3 company. I think he's going to take the beating. So Baybridge for me.
Superb. Right, so we're both in agreement with him. Although I'm going to say, like I said, it's a no bet for me in that one. But Baybridge is going in. Then we've got the 150 at Haydock. It's the Superior Mile Stakes. It's another Group 3. This time it's over 1 mile. We have got the dead 8 declared. Andrew, how do you navigate this one?
Good question. I'm not sort of usually taking in the race. The interesting one for me is so after me helping out Matty by suggesting that William Knight hadn't had the greatest year and might have been out of form. Since Dual Identity landed a punt and bolted up in that race, I've been keeping a close eye on his runners. I tipped one of them up for one of my columns yesterday on Wednesday, Regal Envoy, who just scraped home at Bath, and so I think he's going to have a lot of winners hopefully in the next few weeks. And because our old friend Sir Busker, who often outruns his odds in group company, is running here. I notice he has been nibbled in the betting as well since the decks were made 16s into 10s, and I thought he could run a good race here. Chindit was a bit disappointing last time, and although he generally runs well below Group 1 level, and he's got a very good record when he's in Group 2 or lower company, although a bit disappointing when, say, only third in Group 2 company at Newbury last time, but he's taking another drop down in grade here. So 7-1 is probably a fair price about him, to be honest. Light inventory heading the market, but there's not many ones in those recent form figures for one at such a short price. And Point Linus, you could argue, would go well from the front if allowed to dominate, but was perhaps a shade flattered at York when it paid to be on the front end, finishing second in that race that he won last year. So I'll just going to go Sir Busker, despite the 168-day break, to just get into the frame at an each-way price.
Awesome. Well, I was drawn like you two as also Chindit. He's not quite the 7-1 anymore, though. He has, I think he's probably maybe top price 9-2 on the reformed markets. But him and Light Infantry that you touched on, that doesn't have many ones next to his name, they have come up against each other a couple of times this season already. I don't really think there's as much between them as the market would say. Light Infantry's in at 15-8. Chindit, I think, top price 9-2. Could be wrong. But we're getting dead 8 here, so we're getting first 3 for places. Chindit did run, I thought he ran okay at Newbury. I know what you mean about the fact that he was probably a bit disappointed because he was being favourite, but he travelled nicely into the race. I did think we had a chance that day, although I did Dutch him or put 2 up, put Witch Hunter up in the race as well. Bit of after time in there. But I thought Chindit ran all right. And then it was more maybe the fact that it's 7 furlongs and in those last
I was going to say, he did actually run better than he had done in that race the previous season, hadn't he? When because you look at his record, he's had 11 runs below Group 1 level. He's won 7 of them. And 2 of the 40 feet came in that 7 furlong Newbury contest. So, back at a mile. I reckon that could be the key to him. So I think definitely from a price perspective rather than a confidence perspective, Chindit would be my selection there. And as I say, 8 runners, there will be 3 places up for grabs. Just keep an eye on non-runners. If it was to drop under, so if it was 7 runners and it was only playing 2 terms, I would switch it to a win bet. But Chindit would be the one for me. We do have to touch on Matty, the absentee that did throw up a nap, who was in flying form last week because he has kindly sent us over a nap, which comes in this race, the 150. Won't keep the viewers waiting to the end to find out what that one is. It is Regal Reality. All of his reasoning behind that is going to be set onto the GG website. I'll quickly just give you my reasoning on Chindit as well. Like I said, the Newbury run was quite good last time. 7 furlongs was probably a bit too sharp for him at the end. So I think back up to a mile and on quicker ground will be better for him. James Doyle's in form as well, isn't he? So we've got Sir Busker for Andrew, and it's Chindit for me in the second race, the 150. Back to Kempton now, Andrew, the 110. It's the London Mile Series final. It's a Class 2 handicap over 1 mile. The maximum field size has been reached 14. Horses would have had to qualify for this one from before. How do you see this race? My notes have just disappeared, so I'm chucking it back to you. Sorry. Right. Well, I like this race because there's a funny angle with it, with the draw. We usually get a big field. They usually go like a good gallop. And in the past 10 years, you'd have found 6 winners and made a good profit had you just backed every horse drawn in stall 12 or higher, which sounds a little counterintuitive when traditionally Kempton's all-weather helps to be drawn low to middle. However, since they put a whole big load of extra polytrack down several weeks ago, it does seem that the inside is perhaps not the place to be. And they raced here on Wednesday night. And if you watch the replay, there are a lot of horses who are winning sort of middle or even more towards the stand side rather than the winner. I think the Ocean Murphy, James Fanshawe ridden winner, whose name escapes me, did come late up the inside rail, but it generally seemed to pay to be down the middle of the track. And in this race, I think in the last 10 years, horses drawn 6 or lower are just 1 from 60. Now, we did only have 11 runners in 2019, I think it was, but then the winning then came from stall 10, and the stall 11 horse was 4th. So do have a look at those drawn, higher than you'd perhaps normally consider over a mile at Kempton. Now, top of the shop, Star Sheba, stall 14 of 14, as a hold-up horse who should get the required strong pace. Got Golden Sands in 13, tends to go from the front. So I just wonder if they're going to go a bit too hard here. But I'll certainly sort of give him a squeak if he's allowed to dictate. Too Tempting was a shade disappointing here last time. He's coming out of stall 12. Finishing fourth to Baltimore Boy when a 9-2 shot, but he's got a very good overall record at this track. I think he's going to be suited by a strong pace, and if he can just track Golden Sand, the likely front runner, through, sit on his outer, and I thought Too Tempting had a good chance. And the obvious one is the side Binster runner, First View. Now you could back all his older handicappers, 4-year-olds and older, and make a good profit in recent years. And this one's got a fantastic course record. He's had 5 runs here at Kempton. First, second by a head, first and second by half a length in that Baltimore Boy race last time out. So yeah, 3 of those wins all came in fields of 14 runners. So he's clearly, suited by a strong pace. He tends to sit just, up with the pace or just behind the gallop. He's fairly tactically versatile. And he met trouble last time out when going down by half a length. And I think it's 6-1 each way. You're probably going to get 4 places. It's going to be very, very disappointing indeed if First View isn't in the first 3 or 4. So I'll go First View as the rock solid one, but I'm going to have a sneaky bet on Star Sheba as well, I think, in the hope they go like the absolute clappers and he comes late down the outside, around about 20-1.
Good man. Well, you've made a stronger case for the horse than I would be able to make, but it was First View that I looked at too. Started off with a favourite in this one because in these series qualifier ones, I tend to, I don't know, sometimes on the jumps you'll see it where there's like an eye-catching qualifier, especially for like a Attempts final. Not all the qualifiers and all the finals are the same sort of standard, but I looked at the favourite for how is this horse in after it was beaten the last day, and I can't see anything in there. And as much as I tried to scrape around to try and find something, I see no...
Qatar you're talking about, yeah?
That's right, yeah, sorry, Qatar.
Yeah, there's an interesting stat with 3-year-olds in this race, 0 from 31 in the last 10 years, I think.
Yes, well, again, it bolsters mine more than anything because mine was my impression. I watched the race back and I can't see how it's any better than its last effort. And if it got beaten a Ripper handicap in an 8-runner field where this is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, more competitive, couldn't see it. Then you started chucking in the draw stats and everything, so it just makes a stronger case to take on the favourite, I think. First View was the one that I liked, though. That Christian Howarth, I know you touched on the Kempton form figures there, but he's ridden this horse 4 times, I think, in the past. He's won twice, come second twice, and those 2 losses was the half length you mentioned last time behind Baltimore Boy, and even before that he was only a head behind. Didn't get the clearance to run the last day, so again the sort of cynic in me is a bit like it's a qualifier rather than a final. Maybe don't necessarily get the clearance to runs. Not that it probably matters, but I do think that Christian Howarth on board, like you said, there's places that are up for grabs here. No way this horse is outside the frame, so we're in agreement, and it's First View for me as well. Again, because you touched on it, the price was 6-1 at the time of recording. He's definitely one of those each way selections.
Yeah, he won the race last year, went 7-2 favourite with Christian Howarth on, and I can see him starting over about that sort of price again, 7-2, 4-1, and so there's a bit of juice in the price, even though he's fairly prominent in the betting.
Absolutely. So we're in agreement, Andrew. It's going well.
Yeah, that's just because we're in agreement probably doesn't mean isn't a good thing given my form, but.
It will be. We're getting ever closer to a horse that I really, really like that could get nap stage, but we won't spoil it for the viewers yet. So fingers crossed we're in agreement for that. But next race we've got up is the 225 at Haydock. It's another Class 2 handicap. This time it's restricted to 3-year-olds. It's over 1 mile, 6 furlongs, and we've got the dead 8 declared again. I keep saying that. Maybe I should find a better phrase than dead 8. Sounds a bit morbid, doesn't it? But we've got a big clash here. We've got the Middle Earth form from the last race. We've got Nakiba, who was narrowly beaten by the horse over 1 mile, 4 furlongs. That was when Middle Earth was slowly away. And I thought Middle Earth ground it out like a proper one. Then we've got Denmark, that was wearing blinkers for the first time the last day for Aidan O'Brien. Came seconds to Middle Earth. The pair of those looked like they might be a bit better than the rest of the field on that day. Blinkers stay on. Andrew, I have got a couple of horses here that I wanted to mention, but I'd be keen to know your thoughts before I do that.
Yeah, very interesting race, this one. Looking through the past 10 renewals, one thing that stands out is how well prominent races have done, particularly in the last 5 years. That's typical at Haydock. Generally speaking, it's difficult to come from off the pace. Now, you go back to, I think it was 2019, Trushan couldn't win this off a mark of 91 on his favoured soft ground. He came second that day, and you know what Trushan's done since, obviously, hosted Group 1 wins. And just goes to show how important it can be to be up with the pace. Now, Denmark was the big eye catcher, I thought, in the Melrose. I think the first 5 or 6 came from off the pace, as they often do in the Melrose, and Denmark in second place was the best of those who was ridden prominently, was wearing blinkers for the first time that day. So I thought Denmark had an obvious chance. And in the last 10 years, if you'd backed all horses who'd ran in the Melrose last time out, you'd have found 4 winners from 12 bets. Made a profit of £11.50. So a lot of Melrose runners tend to come here. And the GOAT, of course, also ran in the Melrose. I think he was 6th, and he was fairly prominent as well. So or even made the running. So he was second best of those raced up with the pace. Andrew Balding's had 7 runners in this in the last 10 years, 2 winners, 3 more placed, and a profit of £12.50. To a £1 level stake. So I'm looking at the Melrose. I'm looking at the horses who were prominent in that race, which wasn't the ideal running style. That's why I'd be against Lordship here, because he had the race run to suit. He was ridden patiently, and with only 8 runners, it might not go totally mad up front here. And let's go Denmark over the GOAT. I might do a reverse focus, because if you think the Melrose form is worthy, then all you're asking Denmark to do is, and Denmark and the GOAT to do, is what they did last time out. They could finish 1-2 for a nice code exactor or computer straight forecast.
Oh, I like it. And the main reason why I split in between there is A, it was supposed to be your turn, even though I made you go the last time. But B, I was keen to know with that Middle-earth form, like I said, that's how the market's been shaped up. We've got Nikki from the run beforehand, and then we have got Denmark in there. Wanted to see if that was something that you were keen to stick with. And obviously you have mentioned Denmark there. It does look good form. They talk about supplementing the horse for the St. Ledger almost. It could just be that they are 2 standout horses in there. I'm just not so sure that Denmark, he's gone up a few pounds for that run, isn't he? I think it was £5 he's gone up for it. And I'm a bit reluctant for horses that keep going up in the weights, or it's not keep, it's his first run in handicap, but go up in the weights after getting beaten by something and maybe looking eye-catching, especially when they got the blinkers on. So I was trying to see if there was anything with a bit of value. You mentioned Lordship in there as well. He was back in 4th then, wasn't he? He ended up going off joint favourite. Like you said, everything was run to suit. But Adam Farah has been reunited with him. He claims £3, and he's 3 from 3 on the horse. Tom Marquand, who rode in the last time, is 0 from 4 on the horse now. So not to obviously knock him as a jockey, but some horses just don't get on with them. So I'd give Lordship a little bit of a chance, but it could just be now that he's held off his mark as well, because he probably did give his run in the last day. So we'll swerve Lordship. But the one that I came down on, and not just for the naming convention of it, was Davideo, because I think he's really interesting just for the fact that he always seems to throw in an absolute howler. So there are obviously risks that are attached with him. He won after a break under today's jockey, or Saturday's jockey, Ben Curtis. He was then tailed off last at Ascot. He won next time out in a Class 3 handicap, and then after in that race against Middle-earth, he was tailed off again with no explanation made for it. Now, if you look at his wins, he's been prominent in those, and that was the same when he came second and when he was a novice in 2022. I think that was his second run. So I think tactically, if we were to back him, which I'm going to do, you'd want him to be up there, if not leading. And if he's not sulking again, I think he could be on a workable mark. So the fact that you touched on there that we potentially want to be more prominent here, and that Melrose, everything came from off the pace, I'm hoping that Davideo will be able to, or Davideo, however we're going to say it, I'm hoping that he's going to be able to get out, lead from the front, or be at least prominent. And then I think he's probably overpriced. At the time of recording, he is top price 17-2 with William Hill. And then in general prices, he's about 7-1 poke. So I think there's some juice in that. Like I said before, it's the dead eight. There's 3 places up for grabs. So I do fancy Davideo in here, but I would be backing him each way. Just to reiterate for yours, Andrew, it was Denmark, and you were chucking up a forecast as well.
Yeah, I won't. I don't think I'll be having a bet in the race. I might play it in running, depending on how quick they go in the early stages. I mean, you've got the added complication of 2 Mark Johnson horses in the race. So even though there's 8 runners, you could end up with a 4-way go for the lead. But given the recent history of the race, racing prominently, given the how well Melrose horses have done, then maybe Denmark to beat the GOAT. The current prices are probably pay about 30-odd to 1. I
like it. It's genuinely like a really exciting race. One I'm really keen to watch, and it'll be good to see how it comes out. I wouldn't judge Middle-earth on whatever the Nakib or Denmark doing here. He's a good horse in his own right. Anyway, we've waffled enough on that one, or at least I have. We're back to Ascot now, or maybe it's the first time we go to Ascot. 235 is at Ascot regardless. The third Class 2 handicap in a row. Good quality handicaps. This is over 7 furlongs. We've got 14 runners in here. It's a competitive looking race, I thought. There was 2 that I had of interest in here. Stuart Williams has Quinault under Luke Catton. He'll be claiming £5. Notched up a hat-trick on the horse at the start of the season. He is now £38 higher than the first of those wins. So that's what's stopping me wanting to back him. And I think for all that it'll improve for that outing at his track the last day, because I do think sometimes Ascot does take a bit of a spin for horses to get on there, he was well held. So as much as Luke will be claiming the £5, I don't think that's enough to say that I think this horse will win.
Yeah. I was going to say it's the front runners in a big field at Ascot worry, isn't it, with him? You know, he's had a brilliant season. I think he's a great horse. There's more wins in him, but that would be the worry for me as well.
So he was one of 2, which made it nice and easy that I just thought this next one, I just need to make a little bit of a case for him. So it's Mobashir or Mobashir, the one that's in the bottom of the race. I think he's at 14. He's rated 81. He ran on the 31st of August at Newcastle, where he was a seriously unlucky loser. Now, I know we'll talk about this a lot in the flat, where there'll be horses that get hampered or get like short of room and all that sort of stuff. But go back and watch it. He's, as far as I'm concerned, the winner of that day. He's only up £1 for that, and he is up in class. But he ran well here off £2 lower mark back in July, which wasn't a lower class races. But it just shows that he handles the track. He was a 90 rated horse 18 months ago. He's only a 5-year-old now. He's with a new yard. He's had plenty of runs under them. That run the last day, outside of the fact that he's got a 2 next to his name instead of a 1, I think he comes here in winning form. He's only up £1 for that. So my selection in this race, the 235 at Ascot, is Mobashir or Mobashir, however we say it. Number 14, Andrew. Who did you fancy?
Yeah, this is a cracking old race. And again, big field, straight track, Ascot. Generally look for a hold-up horse. So I want to be against Love de Vega, the Charlie Johnson horse, who was on the front end when winning at Musselburgh last time. Now, the runner-up from that race is the one that interests me, Abduction. I put him up as a bet when he bolted up on his penultimate start. That was an air. They keep running him at Musselburgh, a track that favours front runners, and he keeps catching the eye from off the pace. And he's done that several times this season. You know, there was a run at Pontefract earlier on when he was 5th, and he was trapped on the outside, ridden patiently. And I say he came good, winning by 4.5 lengths at air, 2 runs back. Last time, I mean, he rated more prominently than usual in a field of 5 runners, but you know, it was typical Musselburgh, 7 furlong, small field. Charlie Johnson horse gets on the front end and makes all. If you can get me a match bet, Abduction against Love de Vega, I think you reverse the form, and they're sort of, I think Abduction's about twice the price of Love de Vega, around about 14 to 1. The others of interest, bless him, of course, you know, David Simcock, hold up horse, Haley Turner on board, certainly one for the place spot, I think, or maybe each way. Orban, I've been disappointed by this season. He normally comes good in July or August, and just hasn't really sort of seemed to click. Escobar, I've got an eye on for the autumn when there's a bit more cut in the ground. Ropey Guest hasn't seemed to run 2 races alike this season. As a friend of mine, Stephen Lim, pointed out on Twitter before he won a huge price at York last time, saying that, you know, he sort of bombs out, then runs well, bombs out, then runs well. So he's due a poor one. So I'm going to leave him alone at 14 to 1. And Star of Orion's the interesting one. I think Laura Pearson's won on something like the last 3 handicap rides she's had for Rafe Beckett. And you know, this one could go well also, around about 10 to 1. But I'll go Abduction, and I hope they go at the absolute clap as he comes from off the pace to pick up the pieces.
Awesome. So it is a field size of 14. There are 4 places up for grabs with every single bookmaker out there. So it's Abduction Randroof, top price 14 to 1. But it's a general 14 to 1 poke. And I've gone for Mobashir, I'm going to go for 10 to 1. He's, again, 4 places up for grabs. So it's an each way selection in that one for me. Andrew, we're now about to fly over to Leopardstown. We're over to Ireland, where this is a few of the extra, or a couple of the extra races that ITV have secured. It's a Group 1 over 1 marks for fillies and mares. There's 13 declared. We have Tahiyra in as favourite. I'm going to let you go first, but I can't imagine this will take long to dissect, will it?
Yeah, when I thought this must be a Class 6 all-weather handicap, because there's 4 horses in first-time headgear. You've got you know, first-time hood a couple of times, first-time blinkers. Twice with Meditate, the Aidan O'Brien runner, and Prosperous Voyage. Rafe Beckett sends this one over. Now, Prosperous Voyage Might have got a bit lucky at Epsom because she normally makes the running or races close to the pace. She blew the start, but it turned out that's what you needed to do at Epsom on that particular day because you couldn't win from the front. So she's come through and picked up the pieces. Now, Rafe Beckett's got a really good record with his first-time blinkered runners, so there's half a chance. Prosperous Voyage, if she gets her favourite fast ground, assuming it stays dry, could run some sort of race. I mean, Tahiyra, I'm just not really enamoured by the price, to be honest, and I don't think. I know she's 4 from 5. They only defeated the 1,000 guineas, but she wasn't massively impressive for me last time out at Royal Ascot. I thought at the prices I could take her on. Just Beautiful got a great record on fast ground. You could argue that she was flattered when winning at the Curragh last time because it was at the meeting of the Irish Guineas meeting where you had to be on the front end, and she beat Jumbly. Jumbly, of course, hasn't had many opportunities for Joseph O'Brien. Keeps running well from off the pace. She's got her ground. So I thought there were each way opportunities against the odds-on favourites. So Prosperous Voyage, I'll throw a few quid at, given the Beckett blinkered angle, and I'll go Jumbly as well, just because I was taken by that runner-up effort to Just Beautiful earlier in the season when she came from off the pace on a track where such tactics were virtually impossible to pull off. So yeah, split stakes, Jumbly, Prosperous Voyage, both each way, big prices.
Quite like that. I'm a similar vein in terms of the price for Tahiyra. She can be a little bit heart in mouth of rye, can't she? Where she's like looking for gaps, short room, things like that. I was imagining this because I feel like I see it a few times when you go over to the other side of the sea, where you'll see horses that get boxed in. It gets quite tactical, all that sort of stuff. I thought a probable biggest danger was Homeless Songs, which is the stablemate. So I can't imagine Dermot Weld wanting to box his own horse. So if anything, that might potentially help. Above the curve for Aidan O'Brien doesn't run in this, but was entered. They were dropping that one back down in trip. I would have been very keen to see if they did that. That would have given me a bit more enthusiasm for Meditate, which, as you touched on, has the first-time blinkers. I mean, comparatively with what Meditate has done behind Tahiyra, I think the price is massive on her at 12-1. There are 3 places up for grabs, but I do feel like I'm stuck potentially just stretching to look for something at a price to back each way, purely for the fact that Tahiyra is probably about the right price. So I do think that Tahiyra will win. Tahiyra would be my selection in. I don't want to swerve away, but you've put a couple up at big prices: Prosperous Voyage and Jumbly. Prosperous Voyage is 33 stock price at the time of recording, and Jumbly's 25. We might get a bit bigger on the machine as well, might we?
Yeah, because I'll just go back to Just Beautiful as well. I mean, she's had 7 runs on officially good or faster going all the all-weather. She won 6 of them, and the only defeat was a 2-length 6 when 40-1 for a very competitive Falmouth Stakes. So again, if she can boss this, I mean, might not be able to given how many other runners there are, particularly the ones in first-time headgear. But again. 12-1 would make some appeal, and of course Paddy Toomey won this last year with a 16-1 shot, pearls galore. We've also had winners at 25-1 twice, 20-1, 2 10-1 shots in the last 10 years. So there has been quite a few shocks. Just one favourite, a 7-4 shot, that was back in 2015. So maybe don't go lumping on the favourite if that's your modus operandi.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though, because again, the more we start to look at potential like each way bets or ones in behind there is probably a lot of pace on. I think Meditate with the first time blinkers, she's done it before where they set her off, tries to steady it and then tries to kick on again. It might end up just being the case that everything bar Tahiyra tries to go off, make the run, and they ruin each other's races, and it just makes it even easier for her. But I do think she'll win. I think she's about the right sort of price, but we will move on. Back to Haydock. It's the 3 o'clock. It's the Old Borough Handicap. It's a Class 2, 0-105 rated. Over 1 mile 6, there are 15 declared, but most bookmakers are still playing 4 places. Obviously, typically you need 16 runners or more. And Andrew, you can sit back, relax, because I'm about to waffle about a horse in here. I think you'll like it.
Is it Caius Chorister?
What's that?
Is it Caius Chorister?
No, it's not.
Ooh.
But I think you'll better pick holes in this one. But I also think that deep down inside, you'll feel like a very bad person if you do. So the only horse that I'm interested in here is Euchen Glen. Took the race in 2020, and that was in a 17 runner field. So we have got 15 declared, big field size. He won this race in 2020 big field. Do not worry about that. Yes, he is a 10-year-old now, but he's posted Racing Post ratings of 103 and 102 in his last 2 starts this season, and his official rating is now down to 97. So he's run numbers a bit in excess, £5 and £6 above it. third of 6 in this race last year. It's worth mentioning the 6 because it was a small field. But he was sent off 9-4 favourite, not without support, and he didn't get a clear passage. Watch the race back. We know what it's like at Haydock. All the action really happens for the horses that will know where the line is. In that last half a furlong, or inside the last furlong, was unlucky. Whether he'd have won or not 100% sure, but he would have gone very, very close. That run came off a mark of 105, so £8 lower than he is now, and he did run to a racing post rating of 109. When he won the race, he ran to a racing post rating £10 clear of his then official rating, but he won twice after that off a £6 and £7 higher mark. So essentially, as far as I'm concerned, these races, especially here, he's running a few pounds above his official rating on the RPRs, and he's doing that currently. So I'm going to keep waffling for a little bit. Bear with me. This is the only one I'm going to waffle about. The form going into those last 2 starts in this race, right? We'll just look at the e-ball because it's easy to do that. In 2020, he was 5th, 25-1. His racing post rating was 3 spots higher than his official rating. The e-ball 2022, he was 7th at 12-1. His racing post rating was 5 spots higher than his official rating. And the e-ball this year was 4th at 25-1. His racing post rating was 7 spots higher than his official rating. He's also nicely £5 down on his official rating from the start of the season. So again, let's go back and compare that because I've done that for the e-ball stuff. In 2020, he was down £6 when he came and won this race. In 2022, where he ran, he would have won it as far as I'm concerned. He was down £5 in the ratings. And this season, he's down £5. So by design, this horse comes in here off a mark of 97. He's running in decent form. And I just think that he wins this race, right? He's a stupidly big price as far as I'm concerned. The only negative might be that his winning the race came on soft ground. And being an older gentleman now, he might prefer a little bit more cut in the ground. But if we look at the fact that he ran well enough in this race last year on Good to Firm, and that last run was ongoing, officially described as Good to Firm, Euchen Glen is the one for me. At the time of recording, at the time of waffling, Euchen Glen is available at a staggering, just loading up. I just need to reiterate because I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it before. Is he 10s? 12s. 12-1 top
No,
price.
that's his age, 10.
Yeah, he's 10s, yeah. So 12-1 top price. That is only with one bookmaker, Bet365. So by the time this gets published, he may be like a general 10-1 shot, but you can get 4 places up for grabs. There are some bookies that are doing 5 places. Euchen Glen, for me, should be maybe not half that price, but he should definitely be single figures. So as far as I'm concerned, Euchen Glen wins this race. I'll be honest, I barely even looked at some of the other runners because I just made I thought I could make such a strong case for this one that I think that Euchen Glen goes in and wins. So Andrew, feel free to pick some holes in that one, but do you like Euchen Glen's chance?
I think my big worry would be the ground, and well, the fact that he hasn't won for over 2 years. He's a 10-year-old in the ground, so it's all down to price, isn't it? I think I'll be wanting 16 to 20-1 before getting involved, rather than sort of 10s or 8s. But your value bet is not necessarily my value bet. So the one I liked was the one I put up as a bet, win only. I'm still kicking myself for doing that because he was 6, and most firms were paying out on that many places. Caius, Chorister, who was not given the most fantastic ride. Maybe that's me talking through my wallet. When 6, beating 3 lengths in the e-ball at 22-1. So put her up in my column, put her napped her in the racing post. I thought she was unlucky. I thought she should have won. Jockey change today. We don't get many fillies or mares running in the Old Borough Cup. Only 10 in the last, only 8 in the last 10 years. 2 of those won, 12-1, 11-4. A couple more were placed. Jamie Spencer, normally that means, we're going to be ridden patiently, but he is, as often is talked about, he is quite a good jockey from the front as well. And so, despite the booking of Jamie Spencer, I'll go Caius Chorister. I
like it, and it is like a big field handicap. It is relatively competitive according to the market. It's 11-2 the field. Caius Chorister 6-1, I believe, is the price that I can see on here. Like I say, there are extended places. Four up for grabs. It should be 3 because there's 15 runners. There are some firms that are doing a fifth of the odds for 5, but it's Caius Chorister for Andrew, and I do fancy Euchen Glen. Anyway, we'll come on to that a little bit later. Back to Ascot. I think this time actually it is back to Ascot. It's the 3:10. It's the Lavazza Stakes. It's a heritage handicap for 3-year-olds over 1 mile 4. We're getting basically all national hunt type distances this week. Makes you feel much better. We've got 9 in here. So again, your each way terms will be the first 3. How do you see this race going, Andrew?
Yeah, interesting one. Charlie Appleby wouldn't have a huge amount of blinkered first-time runners. That's the favourite Victory Dance. But the last 10 first-time blinkered runners he's had in handicaps, 9 of them have finished first or second, which is certainly a point worth bearing in mind if you're doing a place spot on Saturday. Although you know, one of those seconds was odds on, another one was 28-1, so a real mixed bag. Al Saqib, the second favourite, Andrew Balding's runner, I thought he had a fair chance because he ran third in that Royal Rhine race at Goodwood last time. You know, the winner bolting up, and because that's already started to work out very well. You've had Crack Shot, who was fifth, come out and win since at Newbury. The sixth Garden Route is running today at Salisbury on Thursday. The seventh Silver Sword came out and won at York. And some of the ones further down the field have come out and run well in defeat since, like Finn's Charm, who was 12th. I bet Baltic Voyage 9th in that race last week, but he went off like a scalded cat at Sandown, was never going to get home in a million years. So one unofficially good to firm ground the time before, so I thought that was interesting. And Gallant Lion is fascinating. You look at this, you think, oh, a string of ones next to its name, and you look at the colours and you think, oh, is that a Gosden horse? No, it's Tony Carroll. And he's been winning his races narrowly, you know, and keeps defying the handicapper. First handicap win came off 63. He was a winner off 80 at Windsor last month, scoring by a neck. He's only gone up £3 for that. There could be plenty more to come. That patient style, or stalking just behind the leader's style, is going to be absolutely fine for Ascot. And again, you could argue that were he trained by Charlie Appleby and Andrew Balding, he wouldn't be 5-1. He'd be a clear favourite, sort of 7-2 or even shorter. So I'm struggling to find an angle away from the top of the market. I can make cases for the front three of the betting, but I'll go for Gallant Lion for Tony Carroll just because I like his running style coming from off the pace.
I like it. Well, I did have this whittled down to 2, Victory Dance and Gallant Lion. The problem was when I was doing my write-up was the more I started to write up on Gallant Lion, the more I was just like, he's just not as good as Victory Dance in terms of class. Like you touched on there, he's up £20 for that first of those 4 wins he's had on the spin, up in class 2, but also up another half a furlong, which I think is quite crucial. Doesn't look like this horse is going to not improve for stepping up in trip. So I think that's going to be enough to eke out a bit more from Gallant Lion. And it may be that, I talk about the headgear stuff, whether it's their concentration or whatever it is. If the favourite is a bit of a dodge, which I don't think he is, then maybe that'll be enough for Gallant Lion to get his head down because he is a winning machine. But I do like Victory Dance. The fact that you've got the Charlie Appleby stats did me a favour because I don't have that. But 4 of his last 5 RPRs have been higher than 102, which is what he's officially rated. Quicker the ground, the better his chances as far as I'm concerned. Like I say, does sport those first-time blinkers. It wasn't a stat I knew about, but you've already touched on there that was definitely not going to be marked as a negative. But I would just reiterate the fact that when I see a horse with headgear on, especially when it's like blinkers, it does make me question whether they're putting everything in, whether it's their willingness, not necessarily to go and win a race, but to put all of their effort in there. If the blinkers do bring out a bit more, and all the form that we've got in the book up to now isn't him necessarily putting 100% in, I think that he's got a serious chance. It is a big drop in class as well. He's got Buick on board. There's lots to like about it. Form could be a little bit suspect. We could have some question marks about that. He was behind the likes of like Nostrum and Isaac Shelby. But I think you're really harsh if you're going to punish a horse based on what others have done since. We'll take him as he stands. He is a favourite in here, but I do think that I could probably see him shortening. He's top priced 9-2 at the time of recording now. So Victory Dance, albeit he's a favourite at the time of recording, he might not be by the time the race goes off. So it's Victory Dance for me, and it was Gallant Lion for Andrew. Back to Leopardstown now. This is a good-looking race. I say good-looking race. It's literally the race of the weekend. It's the Irish Champion Stake, the Group 1 over 1 mile 2. We've got the English Derby 1 and 2 facing off again in Auguste Rodin and King and Steel. And they ran against each other actually when they were younger horses as well. 7 others joined those 2, including the supplemented Alf Layla. So it's always interesting when a horse has been supplemented for a race. Aidan O'Brien's trying to make this 5 wins in a row in this particular race. Last year's winner, Luxembourg, is joining stablemate Auguste Rodin and trying to do that for Aidan O'Brien. We've also got Ernesto that was second in this race last year. We've got Nashwa in here. We've got Al Rifia. It looks like a seriously good renewal. King of Steel hasn't raced at this trip. He's been running like at 1 mile 4. He was entered in a 1 mile 2.5, I think, but didn't run if it was ground or something like that. But I think the drop back 2 furlongs might actually help his keenness. They might go a little bit quicker. I think it's positive for his chances. So for me, King of Steel is the right favourite. I tipped up Auguste Rodin when he ran at Ascot, and most of that was obviously, like, he's a Derby winner. We know what his ability is, but most of that was my faith in Aidan O'Brien. It is brave to rule him out now, but I don't want to be bitten twice by the same horse. And at the price, I don't think he's big enough to start luring people in. So be interested to see how the market goes in this. As I touched on, Alfred is interested because any horse that supplement is interested. I don't think last year's renewal was a vintage one. So in Esther and Luxembourg, I think they'll need others to underperform. Al Riffa has a bit to find on known form and actual official figures, I think. Nash was probably one in the market that could run well at a big price. She ran against the boys the last day. Although she was beaten, she did beat Paddington. She's got that experience of running against the boys under her belt, but this isn't going to be an easy one. So King of Steel is the right favourite for me. King of Steel would be my selection, but it's a race that I will be betting King of Steel, but it's a race that I would want to be sitting back and enjoying because I think it's an absolute classic. Andrew, how do you see it? Are you excited about it?
Yeah, very excited. It's a very difficult race to sort of bet in with confidence, I think, though. But what's interesting about King of Steel, only joint 4th best on Racing Post ratings behind Nashwa, Auguste Rodin, Luxembourg, and tying with Al Flayler. Now, again, because Auguste Rodin, got beaten absolutely miles at Ascot last time. That run's too bad to be true. But I thought he was flattered by the Irish Derby win. I was of the opinion, again, maybe because I bet him, that Adelaide River, the runner-up, would have won with any sort of trying to beat the shorter price stablemate ride. But again, could just be me talking through my wallet. So, I thought he'd be retired after that, Auguste Rodin, and he's got slammed out of sight. Obviously, something's amiss, but even so, do you want to back a horse at 7-2 with it coming here on the back of that sort of effort and dropping in trip, having won twice, having won 2 derbies? Luxembourg was flattered when winning at the Curragh at the Irish Guineas meeting when you had to be on the front end, and has been beaten twice since. I don't think he's a runner. King of Steel, I think he'll appreciate coming back in trip, but it did better than 3-year-olds. Obviously went third to Hookham and Westover in the vintage renewal of the King George, but 11-4, I can leave that alone. Nashwa, I thought, wasn't given the greatest ride at Goodwood, and I didn't really have the race run to suit at York either. And so, ideally, if a good pace, even though Leopardstown traditionally favours front runners like the Curragh, then I think Nashwa is going to go well. She's probably like a reasonable each way shout. But Al Flayler is the one I like, who runs well when fresh. They were talking about the Jedmont after he beat My Prospero on his belated reappearance at York in late July. He's had 6 weeks off. That should be enough. And he's the progressive one. He liked the ground, and I thought he was the most solid of those at sort of single-figure prices. So and there's a bit of juice in the price still around about 6-1. So I'll go Al Flayler, but it is a fascinating race.
Yep, definitely looks a good one. So it's Al Flayler for Andrew. Given the fact that it's a 9-runner field, it is 6-1 plus. You looking at Al Flayler each way, would you?
I think I'd just back him to win, to be honest, and I'd probably then back, maybe just save on Nashwa, sort of 80% on mistake on Al Flayler, 20% on Nashwa. I
like it. That is confidence, to be fair. I've gone for King of Steel. Obviously, won't be backing him each way. He's 11-4 both. I think he's about the right sort of price. So it's a race I'm excited about, but I think you touched on it as well. It's a difficult one to get really confident or that excited about from a betting heat. We've moved on to the 10th. We've finally made it, Andrew. 3:35 at Haydock. Betfair Sprints Cup Stakes is a Group 1 over 6 furlongs. We have got the max field of 17. I think there's 18 that have been declared, so just keep an eye on that. But it's headlined by Shaquille, who has been probably one of the most incredible horses of the flat season. Obviously, everyone was getting excited about Paddington making him the flagship horse. Shaquille, to do what he's done, given he falls out the traps, like the proverbial slow away. He's like a Skurlog champ over 6 furlongs. It's mental. I like the horse. How do you see it, Andrew? Is there any way you can possibly see Shaquille getting beat?
Yeah, I say that every time he runs. I think he might not flop out the stalls. He might get left in them this time, and but he keeps doing the same thing, and he keeps winning with something up his sleeve. So I think, for all intents and purposes, he'll probably win again. A slow start, traffic trouble. not impossible to see him being unlucky and running second. 11 to 10 on with sort of doubts like that is not for me. But I think rather, of the others we looked at similar prices, I think I'd probably rather back this one than those other ones. And then it's a case of, well, there's going to be extra places on offer. Let's find something that's going to run well at a big price. First of all, it's Haydock straight course. We should talk about the draw. We've seen time and time again this season that there's been a bias to one side or the other. Depends on how much water they put on it. Kirkland toe right, so absolutely anything could happen. It's a bit of a minefield, isn't it? I was just looking at two. I mean, St. Lawrence is still open to improvement on only his third start for Archie Watson, the Woking winners. He's in stall 14. He could go well. But I was swing along as well. The likely front runner from top of the shop, stall 18 of 18. So if it's a pace bias race as well, he's going to get first run, isn't he, on the favourites? I should say. Swing along could go well for Carl Burke. Having won at York last time. But there was two that I was looking at. One is a reserve, Happy Romance, one of the Richard Hannon runners, and she's she did win over 5 furlongs at a stiff track, Bath and good to soft ground when there was a pace collapse earlier in the season. Since then, she's struggled in a couple of runs over that trip. I say struggled. Her sixth dramatised over this track over 5 furlongs with a very good effort because she was poorly drawn on the far side. She came out of stall 2 that day, I think it was. And you look at, plenty of other horses who were drawn low that day have come out and won or run well since. And last time out, she bombed out in the King's Stand. But back up to 6 furlongs. She ran well in this race a couple of years ago. She was 4th. Emiratiana beaten a length, 25 to 1. So if she gets in the race, Happy Romance on a favoured fast ground could go well. And the other one I want to back each way is Should Have Been a Ring from stall 10, the other Hannon runner. Now, he was only 4th to Lazoo in listed company at Newmarket last time, but the race developed towards the near side, and he was sort of exposed, virtually racing alone in these closing stages from the highest draw. So I thought you could draw a line through that, and hasn't had that many opportunities. 6 furlongs on fast ground. Got good form in big fields, and it's come from behind performer. Bigger the field, the stronger the pace, the better he'll go. And he wasn't massively disgraced behind Shaquille at Royal Ascot in the Commonwealth Cup, finishing 7th of 13 runners that day. And so I thought, 50 to 1 or thereabouts about the pair of them. Should Have Been a Ring and Happy Romance, but so Happy Romance in reserve, she might not get in.
Excellent. So you put a few selections up there. I did see when we started doing the notes for this one, it was only first 3 places up for grabs because obviously we have got a load of runners, but it's not a handicap. There's a few bookies now that have gone 4 places. I think there's one that's gone 5, so we could get that. Be interesting if they do a betting without market as well, wouldn't it, given the size of the field? Because like we say, that Shaquille is one of those that we feel like one of these days it's going to catch him out right. You can't keep running in sprint races and falling out the stalls. But I do think Shaquille's the way to play it. He would be like a form of selection. If I was going to bet him, I'd be tempted to put him into Tahiyra in a double together. One I'm going to mention, if anyone's managed to sit through 45 minutes of our show, is Rohan, because I think this horse looks like he's going to absolutely bolt up in the Air Gold Cup. He has been supported for that race, right? So he was behind Alligator Alley the other day. He was 25's top price. I think he's 20's top price now. They're running him in here in a race that he's clearly got no chance of winning. Maybe they might see if they can squeeze another £1 or £2 down. So if you have managed to stay this far through, you can have a little nugget there. Rohan is not a 20 to 1 play for the Air Gold Cup. I reckon that horse will go a favourite. Andrew, we've done it. We've made it through the 10 ITV races. I've swiftly moved on so you can't shut down my Rohan mention. Have you got anything from anywhere else?
No, I think that's it. I'm exhausted.
Absolutely.
Time to look.
And for naps, right? I reckon I'm struggling to be able to predict what your nap will be. So who's your nap?
That's because I haven't thought of it yet. I'll go Caius Chorister in the 3 o'clock at Haydock.
You've done it again, Andrew. It's a match bet. It's a match race between the two of us because Euchen Glen wins the race. So maybe it's redemption time for you, but we're both napping in the 3 o'clock. Give the people what they want. Let's give them a winner at least in a race. Thank you very much for all your insight in this one, Andrew. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you again soon.